disc. We are Frisbee people after all, just to make a few decisions as to what the gender matching majority is going to be, who starts on offense, who starts on defense, and that's a critical thing, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the game. When we get there though, at the moment for the opening poll, my name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Kelsey Bielek.
Sorry about the delay, Kelsey. Thank you so much for joining me here as Miller Mercer to pick up and initiate the offense for Laminati, finding How as a reset.
And it's all good, Blair. I am stoked and honored, everyone, to be commentating here with the voice of New Zealand Ultimate himself, Blair, and stoked to be watching this game with you guys. It's interesting we're seeing Hammertron coming down in his zone right off the bat. It's actually a personal favorite of mine, a really interesting strategy just to mix up defense. People tend to assume a person defense. We're seeing it's a successful defense right there. A deep look, cleaned up. And a turnover, giving Hammertron an opportunity on offense.
We are going to see Michael Downey to pick up and initiate, supported by Simone Ball. Finn Collins pushing a long shot.
I love this.
What a great option. I mean, that Hammertron, they are going to be happy with that. Any teams smart enough to be watching the streams will get a little bit of a bonus information. Hammertron have really been drilling the break side, looking at that as a first target option, even up to the sort of the mid-stall counts, around 4 or 5 throughout the course of their vertical stack, really trying to hammer that break side, having had Lucas Wilcock acting as their coach, who's currently playing for one of the MDC teams, MDC Boat, I believe, who we'll see a little bit later on in the tournament. But that is an offense that's been utilized really heavily in the sort of under 20, under 24 space recently. So he's brought that across to Hamilton. That's what they've been drilling for the last season. It's going to be really interesting to see if they can continue to have that payoff just as they did in that first point. A one-pass offense. Michael Downey to pick up, who had a birthday, I think, only a few days ago, really.
Happy belated Michael Downey.
And sending that deep for Finn Collins for an early break.
And I'm such a fan of that point. I'm such a fan of Laminati as well. But looking at Hammertron and how they orchestrated that point, I mentioned coming down in a zone can be a really effective way right off the bat for the first time, just kind of leaving the other team on their heels a little bit, taking them by surprise and throwing something different, forcing them to be creative right away, resulting in the turnover and then such a beautiful connection. Downey's such a workhorse and a gorgeous deep point to start the game. Now we've got Llamanati on offense, Wiegensdorp with the disc, and Hammertron responding with a zone of their own.
Miller Mercer managing to slip past the middle of that zone to find Chloe Topping, working with Smith and Weindorp. It slips right past. Michael Downey gonna, I guess we'll call that an intercept as he quickly resets to Simone Ball. Manages to slip past Bruce Ing, threads one right through to Nikki White for the second back-to-back break. What a great opening to this match by Hammertron Brime. Whatever they've been drilling has clearly been working for them. But as you say, Kelsey, it's that really aggressive zone early. And just as a note for the conditions, we've had a really dominant upwind, downwind from the right-hand side of your screen, pushing hard towards the left. It's been consistent through the last 2 games. And so, an opportunity like Hammertron there to really aggressively have that zone set up so that Laminati are forced to throw into the wind. It's just adding an 8th, sometimes even a 9th defender in what is ordinarily a 7-a-side sport.
Also, just a big ups to Michael Downey. It may have been his birthday a few days ago, but he took no days off. And I'm not talking about the field. I'm talking about the sewing room where he's threading needles all day. The vision. Oftentimes we can get so stuck when we're on one side of the field, even if it's the break side, just so stuck looking ahead of us. And he just opened up the whole right side of the field in front of him, saw the gap, and threaded that beautiful forehand, just a flat basic forehand across for an easy catch. He's got 2 assists on the scoreboard right now, 2 assists in the game. So just such a strong start for Hammertron.
Well, that is why the number on the sheet is 22. So it's going to be 2 assists and 2 scores is what we should expect to see from Michael Downey in this game. The pressure applied by Hammertron, so aggressive, so early that we've seen a timeout called. Teams are given 1 timeout per half and a floating timeout in a tournament like this. To see the Lamanitis use one up so early in the game, they're clearly aware that Hammertron are building momentum and they're just trying to do something to shut that down, to throw a wrench in the works early.
And we're seeing Maria Smith with the disc right now, number 24 for Hammertron, we see her throwing a practice outside in backhand. So we'll see if that comes firing off the launch pad for this next point. Also, Hammertron, a team, a club that hails, of course, from Hamilton, and they've got so much depth on this club. They've got the experienced players who've represented at the world stage, the up-and-coming players. Really awesome to see that talent across all abilities and skill levels, and the work that they've put into development as well. Meanwhile, Laminati, just a really great group of mates. People have played quite a bit with each other from Auckland. A beautiful inside-out upfield swing, can't quite make it.
Kapoor looking for White. Murgatroyd in hot pursuit. It's fading back hard. Who's coming down with it? It's going to be Alicia McCoy with the disc, but there's definitely a question as to whether or not there's contact. That attempted conversation about contact, it retracted in favor of a point. Alicia McCoy, what a fantastic performance there already so early in the tournament, hailing from Morrinsville in the Central North Island, whose brothers played just recently at the Division 2 Championships for Morirua. Some great work there on display from the entire family. We do love to see the establishment of new Frisbee dynasties here in New Zealand. Great work there to put that one on the board.
Also, really potentially dangerous throws. We saw so many bodies underneath the throw for the point there. Just one more time, it was coming up to White, and then as it was fading away, just the cluster of people around. And I think what we can conclude from that catch at the end was that obviously height cannot be taught, that hops are well drilled, but also positioning, just knowledge, awareness, reading where the disc is going to go, how the wind might be manipulating it, and what's happening with the throw is such a critical skill. Being underneath it where you can reach it is all you really need at the end of the day. Yeah, even with height and hops, you can still teach how to read a disc better. A perfect job done right there. We've got Hammertron launching the disc downfield with the wind at their backs.
Great roller pull there.
Unfortunately, rolling out of bounds.
And because Miller Mercer had touched it, it's going to have to be brought in at the back of the end zone. Stephanie Franson calling for something to come over the top of that Hammertron zone.
Blair, why is this such a dangerous space right now?
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you asked, Kelsey. The important thing is that an interception here by the defense would constitute a score. Miller Mercer desperate to get out of the end zone. Finn Collins in pursuit, going to generate a turn on that Hail Mary option, trying to find Max Stevenson, streaking deep.
I was going to say that was a really great decision from Mercer in not only clearing the space and launching it out of a dangerous space where a Callaghan could have been scored, that's Callaghan territory, but also finding a deep player to throw it to. I was thinking that and then was proved immediately wrong by such a beautiful, clean defensive play.
Huge chase down by Finn Collins. It's what he does. He's just long.
Collins showing that maybe what might seem like a good option may not always be.
I mean, that's what they say, right? They say built different, and different just means longer. Finn Collins managing to find Michael Downey on a reset to center field, immediately pushing that into the deep space. Marked aggressively by Caitlin Wood. It looks like they're going to be pushing more of a zone look, certainly up the front, switching through those defenses. Hamish Furness to ball. Mercer trying to take a bite. It goes to Downey. Some big fakes, getting some response from the defense. Sends a big shot up.
Is he
looking for Kilgore?
Third assist. Not so.
As we say in social leagues, two hands for beginners. A great position there by Kilgore. But one hand leaning backwards is not going to be able to pull it down. It's Mercer again, White and Furness aggressive up the front of that defensive zone.
And also it's really important to be able to catch a Frisbee, to catch the disc in any angle. Nonetheless, when it's coming down vertically like that, it can be much more difficult to make that catch. Cleaned up by Downey.
Michael Downey with a great intercept, chipping through to White. Goes back to ball. Huge plays by Michael Downey, just doing some fantastic work here, leadership. He had separation there, but it's going to go back to Finn Collins. Options there around. Manages to find Kilgore for his third assist of the game.
A big nod to the defense there. Took away one, took away two, but how agile can you be when Downey's just throwing those options 1, 2, 3, 4, three times the charm?
Is that 3 back-to-back assists for Michael Downey? I think it is.
I think it is.
My godfather, he's just doing the most. Now, I've said this a couple of times. Michael Downey is the reason that I continued with Ultimate. I had the good fortune of being on an indoor hat team with him in my first year of playing. And he was in preparations for the World Ultimate Club Championships in 2018 at the time, I believe. And just seeing what an athlete is capable of in that environment made me want to improve. I mean, I haven't, but it made me want to.
One thing, just to jump on the fan wagon here, is that there's so many different types of Ultimate Frisbee players. You can have players that are just naturally built different. They're so athletic, and they perform when they need to. You have players who learn how to throw. They pick things up really well. They learn how to read discs. And one thing that I really like about Michael Downey as a player is that he's a workhorse. That despite having the skill and the talent, he still works really hard through every point to make these things happen. The disc goes up.
Huge rip from Coral Huang there, looking for Jacob Woodward, and just overthrows. Again, a great, well-weighted throw. I haven't seen a button drop like that since the last time I tried to put on a medium men's dress shirt. But just a fantastic throw with the strong wind at the back. It's just going to add a couple of yards and really push it forwards just outside the reach of a great bid by Jacob Woodward, but just not gonna be enough. Unfortunately, Michael Downey having had to take a break. Somebody else gonna have to score an assist if Hamertron Prime want to put another point on the board. It's Furness coming near side to Simone Ball, very shifty, keeping the disc low, keeping it under control. Finn Collins is a reset option. Reddings and Love Parada to initiate that zone defense there for Laminati.
And this is one thing it's impressive about Hammertron as a team, is the depth of skill they have. Ball has represented New Zealand in so many world championships. It's difficult to keep track. Same with Furness, number 33. They have so much depth on the team to balance each other out in addition to that new skill, as I was saying.
Hamish Furness managing to get past the attempted scorpion block by Ronnie Reddings.
There's some yoga moves there.
Yeah, it's going to be Smith who manages to shut that one down. Collins not going to be able to get it. Sheena Windorp on the disc, marked by Melody Young. Happy birthday, Melody. Just celebrated one recently as well. Looking to shut down the defense the way she shuts down the misbehaviors in her class at school. Room 18, I hope you're watching. You guys better get your homework done. It's Hamish Furness looking back for Simone Ball. Finn Collins was an option. He's there, rear as a reset opportunity. Connor Doherty getting a bite out of the defense from Woodward again. Collins ripping a huge one, looking for McCoy a second time.
What a read! What a catch! Did you guys just see that?
I think they did, unless they blinked. What a put from Finn Collins. There is a nasty habit of people calling travel on Finn Collins when he puts that throw up. So it's really important that when players release the disc, their pivot foot is fixed to the ground. He's timed it incredibly well. That foot doesn't move until the disc has left the hand, and that follow-through momentum is there. Teams do have a nasty habit of calling travel on that. But that throw was absolutely pin perfect. We'll see again.
I think what's so impressive there, I saw him wind up. I was wondering if it was going to be a fake, but also the read. We see the way she just sticks with it. That's one thing that can be really difficult to do in Ultimate. You see the disc go up, and you're running underneath it, and then it has a mind of its own, and it takes off. And she just maintains that speed underneath it, seeing it through her hands, and then safely holding onto it to the point where she has to sacrifice her body, knowing that that's what's needed to keep it in her hands. What a beautiful throw, just with the power behind it upwind. It floated so beautifully. And then the dedication and commitment, reading the disc really well. This is the second point she scored.
Absolutely. I was going to say second point on the board for Alicia McCoy, which is fantastic. We are going to see Hamertron come back out one more time. They're going to come down on defense. We've got Lehigh Kapoor, White, Maria Smith, Simone Ball, Melody Young, Michael Downey back on the field with Jacob Kilgore.
I love this line.
Simone Ball with a great roller pull. In response, we've got Max Stevenson, Chloe Topping, Jana Lowe, Miller Mercer sending one long. Who's he looking for? It's Max Stevenson. No, it's Michael Downey again.
Again. I think at that point maybe he was looking for Michael Downey. I know we are.
Maria Smith getting a huge bite out of Bruce Eng, who's being very active on the mark. An uncharacteristic drop by Downey there. Definitely impacted by the wind.
Yeah.
You could see the bobble before it hit his hands.
Which is, as we've seen throughout all the games today, is making such a massive impact. We're lucky and happy. Thank you, Christchurch City Council, for pausing the rain. Sun's come out. However, the wind has not stopped gusting away and is, as we've been saying, the third team on the field. Really impacting a lot of the offensive throws, making a lot of uncharacteristic drops from players who we'd normally be expecting to catch, and having a massive impact on the game. So that's a beautiful point.
Max Stevenson managing to slip one through to a far side Miller Mercer at the front cone. As you've mentioned a couple of times throughout the day, Kelsey, we're seeing a lot of dancing, which is where those handlers aren't clearing out from their cuts. They're taking a few steps, trying to get the defense to overcommit, but hanging back to be an early 2, maybe 3 meter pass to gain yards up the field. We saw a little bit of that from Max Stevenson, but clearly it's something that they've drilled. It's something that is paying off. We'll see it here. There it is, that little shimmy shake covered by white. And then it's Mercer back to Stevenson, and then no one on top of Mercer, managing to get a bite out of Maria Smith. She's maybe picked up the wrong threat on that one. A person who has the disc outside of the end zone is not as much of a threat to the scoreboard as someone unmarked in the end zone.
And also interesting that Hammertron kept their zone throughout that space. It can be oftentimes difficult to maintain awareness in the zone when you're marking space instead of people, when one throw is all you need to score a point. Oftentimes teams will convert to person or match defense, and maybe that's something Hammertron could have done. At the same time, if you have a strong zone, it can be really effective maintaining that in the end zone as well. Nonetheless, I just really wanted to remark on the first point that Laminati have put on the scoreboard. Big ups to them. Also, against the headwind, that was the high side. It's one point that we've been singing the praises of Hamertron, such strong lines, such beautiful execution, but I'm really hoping that this is the beginning of a bit of a comeback for them right now.
Yeah,
starting off on defense, downwind.
Huge players like Huang, Franson, Howe, Stewart, Murgatroyd, Weindorp, Woodward again, coming down in a zone defense of their own. It looks like they're yes, it definitely is a zone in response to Laminati. So we're seeing Hogan, Wilcock, and Vaughn Wilson try to initiate the offense. I did say to him at the airport I wasn't going to say his full name, so I'm going to try and practice that. Wilson on the near sideline trying to make himself available as an option for Wilcock, but Stewart is going to clog that lane and stop anything happening. Woodward, nice and aggressive, but a left backhand around to Wilson. The offhand backhand truly is the throw of kings and queens. It's Hogan now trying to fake something to get that shift downfield, opening something up for a swing.
So just exploring the defense right now that Laminati are throwing. They've got a menacing three-person cup with a chase. And Kelly Carter, who's a champion, one of the strongest handlers, in my opinion, in the country, takes to the ground to try to clean that up. We've got Laminati with a disc right now.
Not just your opinion, Kelsey.
That's good to hear. Laminati making steps closer to the end zone, looking for an inside of Murgatroyd.
We have seen some amazing inside forehands that they're just wide stepping out past the mark. The mark again applying a really aggressive lateral pressure to the disc to try and force or close down one side of the sideline. Just a question as to whether or not that disc was in. We're going to see it again.
So interesting again to see the zone. I see this such a menacing zone to have in front of you as a handler. They've got a chase, and then one of the players cleaning up, that's number 53, cleaning up the swing. A massive high side throw, but the pressure on it was just too great. Looks like there was a foul, no contest.
Yeah, so Maringi Hogan waiting for the disc to drop and hide a little bit. If she'd gone and attacked it, chances are she would have fallen out. Now, what's interesting here is that Maringi Hogan called the foul immediately. Stephanie Franson for Laminati called and accepted straight away. They still had a discussion just maybe to make sure they're on the same page about what's going to happen. So we're going to see Hogan thinking she would have had that disc if that play hadn't come through. We'll pick up and initiate again shortly.
So we've got the player, in this case it's Weindorp, covering the swing, so that's the other open handler, and then the two other players in the wall just shutting down so many of those short options, which can be really difficult in the wind. We see it successful right there as they're trying to find that open player. It does leave open players downfield, but in situations like this, I think really well executed zone, taking away those open options.
Stephanie Franson not overthrowing Woodward with a great chase to close that down as Connor Doherty tries to get in front of it. Windorp puts one on the board. It's back-to-back for Windorp and the Llamanati.
And, you know, a menacing defense when you have a player like Carter. They're closing in hot, but also Windorp, such secure, safe hands. She's a player you can definitely trust, not just in the end zone, but anywhere on the field. But stoked, nonetheless. She throws the disc on the ground, expressing that excitement as I think my prayers are coming true. My hopes are as Laminati put another point on the board. Hopefully a bit of a comeback as they're settling into the game a little bit, settling into the fields, the other team's playing style.
Now, at their most recent clash at the Tamaki Throw-In, Laminati did end up coming out on top of Hammertron Prime in their final match. So it's interesting to see how the momentum swings. As I've said on stream multiple times before, each superpower is fighting the last war. You always fight the last version of your opponents. The hardest team to beat in a tournament is the one you've already beaten. Mentally, you think you've got a sense for where they are, what they're capable of, and what they're trying to achieve. And quite often, they've taken a loss and they've learned from it. And we're seeing that certainly, knowing that Hamertron have to come out firing against Laminati, try and set them on the back foot early. But just absolutely fantastic work there. And again, that zone pressure, forcing that low release, sort of air bouncy backhand from Wilcock that came out, and it had to come out hot. You could see it the way it bounced off the hands just from the heat on that throw that he had to put it to combat against the wind. Max Stevenson with a pull. It's coming out high over the near sideline. Is it going to fade back in?
And it lands on the line.
So Ing to set up. Looks like we're going to, we've seen a call to brick the disc, possibly. Yes.
Yes, and he's bricking. Yeah, and bricking or pulling it slightly out of bounds is, of course, disadvantageous for your team, especially if you're setting up a zone, which looks like might be played. It gives the other team time to understand what's happening, to see what's happening on the field, to set up, and just make plans. It gives the offense time to react, as opposed to just diving right into it. We've got Carter
working with Wilcock,
lefty back,
pressured by Ing, Smith, and Love Parada at the front of that zone. It's Wilson. Ing, he's so agile and he's so imposing on the defense. It's so great to see. But he can't stop. Quixley getting involved, getting a hand, working with Hogan on the near sideline. Wilcock's an option as a wide reset.
What
instead, Big Fakes has to find Murihu Cookson, who absolutely body checks Chloe Topping.
Taking the knee, get no time to stand up.
Somehow manages to touch that off his own hands for a layout grab to keep it in possession. Finds Maringi Hogan on a nice advancing pass. Kelly Carter on the wide reset to Wilson, chipping back over the bidding Ing. Great work there by the Hamertron offense. Wilcock to Hogan.
Beautiful
comes
movement.
High.
And one thing that the Hammertron was initially earlier in this possession getting a bit stuck on the downfield line, but this really they've opened up that space just like I wanted them to. They're swinging it to the high side. They have the skills to do that, the abilities, and great to see players like Kelly Carter, who are often assisting those points, finding her way in the end zone and tearing that down to put another point on the board for Hammertron.
It's one of those interesting things, Kelsey. You've mentioned that Michael Downey in particular, he's a workhorse. He just always just grinds and works, and it doesn't really matter how tired he is. He always manages to find something else. I think Kelly Carter is another perfect example. She's offensive output. She is an absolute workhorse, and yes, while as one of the strongest handlers in the country, she spends a lot of her time in the upfield space directing traffic, trying to quarterback an offense, creating openings, and moving the disc around. Don't leave her in the end zone, guys. Not to mention the fact that she's wearing Tokay cleats, who, while they are not one of our tournament sponsors, are a fantastic cleat manufacturer. Huge shout out to Robin over in France, who's done some fantastic work in just trying to make a set of cleats for the ultimate player really, really wide through the foot, so they're not nearly as restrictive as typical football cleats. If you're a player, if you're trying to think about, oh, I need to get some new shoes, my Blair Monroe recommendation is to definitely get in contact with Tokay and check them out. But we're going to see the defensive side. The score is now 6 2, I believe, to Hammertron Prime. 2 points away from the half. Miller Mercer putting a laser shot up.
Fires it. Oh, it's too low. It's too low to the ground. And the wind could be playing part of that too. When you're throwing down wind, it can gust and hit the ground. And I think really critical right now, this is the time of the game when Laminati need to really stop Hammertron, stop the hammer to the anvil. You know, maybe throw some cotton wool, something in between, because even if they do have a strong comeback, those first few points at the beginning of the game can have such a massive impact at the end.
Michael Downey with another uncharacteristic bobble. If he does a couple more of those, they might stop being uncharacteristic, but a huge layout to secure possession for Hutchison.
Who might be biting himself at the end of the game that he didn't catch that.
Would have been a great opportunity for a score there. Having to work back with how Miller Mercer losing yards marked by Finn Collins. Mr. Built Different, but he lets one go around to Ronnie Reddings for the score. Laminati back within 3.
And tough when you have a mark like Finn Collins on you. Such a big wingspan. And difficult to get around that. Incredible display of flexibility and athleticism from Mercer to step out around a mark like that. That low release flick was really just such a good shot. We've got Laminati now looking upwind for the challenging upwind point. The first point they scored was on the upwind side of the field, so looking no doubt to repeat that. And stopping that choo-choo train, that power and momentum that Hammertron has put on display since the beginning of the game. Coming out firing and just grinding out the points. As I was mentioning before, the first part of the first half can be such a critical time where even if you do have a strong comeback and you're trading points at the end, those first few points that the other team may have scored in the beginning can be all they need to finish up a game at the end, especially if there's a cap that's put on.
It's a little bit surprising, actually, that little highlight there that we just saw. Ronnie Reddings on a great crossfield cut to put that point away for the Lamanatis was being marked by Lehigh Kapoor. Normally a really aggressive defender. He's incredibly quick with his foot speed, so not entirely sure. Maybe he's taking some time to get dialed into this match. But we're going to see Huang with the pull for the Laminati. Nice and long and low. Near sideline, it's Hogan with Wilson and Carter again. 3 offensive powerhouses for the Hamertron side. But we've seen Laminati be able to respond with some aggressive defense of their own. Huvelan back on the field for the first time since having given birth only recently. Does not look like it slowed her down at all. It's Wilson. As the defense sags off, it creates an opening, but he decides not to use it as Stevenson and Woodward close. Carter to Doherty.
And one thing that I really enjoy in this matchup between these two teams as well, Blair, is how much mixing of players there is. A huge hammer comes up.
But not huge enough. It came in low, and it's going to generate a turn.
Not my favorite throw there. I've been hating on the hammers, unfortunately, today. I did want to mention, though, that so many players, there's some players from Auckland who are playing with the Hammertron team. There's so much mixing and a lot of knowledge and awareness about how each other play. Different teams and different strategies. But cool to see both teams matching up here in ULTI.TV Christchurch. Launching downfield, looking for Weindorp. She's closing in hot.
Yes, she is. Manages to walk away with that one. And it's interesting you say that your hammer is your least favorite throw, Kelsey, but it's not called safe reset backhand Tron. Great put there by Laminati. Huge bid, a great attempt by Briar Bertram to get a touch on that one, but just not quite enough. And that's going to let them really open up that near sideline, driving a big line all the way through.
Big fan of the hammers in the right situation, I think, when it calls for it. Maybe we'll see a few more from Hamertron over the course of the game. And what an amazing point from Weindorp. That launch and release, that was a Blueberries connection, actually. Blueberries, one of the top teams in the country, women's team hailing from Auckland. And that connection, I believe, from Huang to Weindorp is one that they've drilled, no doubt, over the course. Mixed season finishes up and they're playing together, and then they're right into the women's season where they're teammates again, and just so well drilled, so connected, and aware of what each other are looking for. The speed that Weindorp had closing closing in on the disc there. And Huang, no doubt, being fully aware of that with a beautiful upwind huck, just floating it perfectly for her to run onto and then put her body on the line. We've seen quite a few of those, not necessarily layouts to reel it in, but just to ensure they hold on to it.
Speaking of body on the line, something Sheena Weindorf is known for, perhaps embarrassingly well in the New Zealand Ultimate scene, was a fantastic play in the 2019 Division 1 Championships when she was playing for Space Invaders with quite a few of her Laminati teammates here, where she overran a disc and ran into one of the barriers that was surrounding the field. A large audible clunk echoing on into the annals of history as Wilcock manages to send it to Wilson, but Ing snatches it out of nowhere. And the disc seems to know in whose possession it wants to be, as Lowe not able to connect with Franson, so it's going to go back to Wilcock and Hogan, initiating the offense against that aggressive three-person zone.
And they're trying to move the disc quite quickly. You'll see these quick pop passes as they're pausing on the wings to look for the open option. This is critical, clinical zone offense. When you're in the middle, you're generally trying to just move it as fast as you can. Then once you have a little bit of space away from the defenders, that's when you take a moment to look downfield. When there's no one on you, that little bit of space is you're trying to tire out the defense as they're doing laps across the field, zigzagging down.
And that's what we are seeing, just a lot of zigzag. It's back and forth. Doherty, Wilson, Wilcock in the upfield space. Bertram, Houvelan.
An arrowhead zone here from Llamanati. As there's one person on the mark, and then there's the two downfield, with Hammertron making this quick movement. However, it's definitely putting challenges on the defense to recover quickly and set again. It's a young team, it's an athletic team. Laminati has the depth and the athleticism to carry them through this tournament, but in points like this, especially when Hammertron is forcing them to run to catch up, that's how you really grind a team down. No matter how well drilled you are, you get tired at the end of the day.
One thing I really want to draw attention to is just the way that Kent Wilcock has been moving off the disc. So he's making those reset passes, and then he's looking to establish cuts that aren't necessarily setting him up for the next pass, but the pass after the next pass. It's really, really good to see. That's how a team handler looks to play. It's not just about, I want touches on the disc, I want to throw the assist. It's, what can I do to create the best advantage? We'll see him move on that up line again, sneaking back around, but he's created an opportunity
and really
for Wilson to somehow keep that one off the turf, although it looks like he's going to make a call about that one.
Not sure what's happening. Let's take a closer look. Looks like it was well in bounds.
I think it's a question as to whether or not it was up. So we'll see a tip here and then a scoop underneath, but did it hit the grass before he had control of it?
What do you guys think? It's out for the audience, out for the jury. I was also pointing out it can be difficult in points like this, both offensively and defensively. Hammertron's playing quite conservatively with their throws. They haven't thrown any of those hammers I've been hating on. They're keeping the throws safe and clean. At the same time, it can be difficult. It wears you down mentally when you wears down the people downfield, but also defensively, staying engaged and not losing focus. The longer you spend focusing on that and staying engaged, fully aware of the space around you, the harder it is to kind of maintain that. So this is really an impressive effort. I'm not sure how many throws they've put up now and how long this possession has been, but it's an impressive showing.
Great orb. Bruce Eng making a fantastic play on that one. You could see earlier Houvelan had set herself up as a reset option for Wilson working on that far sideline, but he could see where Eng was and just how quickly he can move. It's one of those amazing things that separates elite offenders from their more casual counterparts, that ability to recognize, hey, I know who you are as a player, I know who you are as a defender, and it doesn't matter how fast I can throw this disc, I know that you can cover that space. Great score by Doherty to bring Hamertron within one of half.
Wow.
But just a huge level of awareness is in this play. And as you say, Kelsey, it's super important. The longer you stay dialed in, the harder it is to stay dialed in. It racks up that mental fatigue because you're taking in information. You've got a 120-degree cone in front of you, and anything moving in and out of that space, you're making split-second decisions. Are they a team member? Are they in opposition? Are they close enough to block this throw? Where are my channels? How open are they? What kind of margins are we looking for? particularly at this level. We're not seeing slow, wobbly forehands come out, getting caught in the wind and bobbled, and then eventually being closed down by a player. The game is not random. The way I like to think about it is when you watch little kids play soccer or football for the first time, and wherever the ball moves, there's this little cluster of kids all packed around them. At lower levels, Ultimate can kind of look similar, but at levels like this, we're seeing better use of space. We're seeing greater depth, stretching the width and the length of the field. We're seeing good positioning. And it's just that ability to take all that information and do something with it and just over and over keep making good decisions. And the longer that you can able to string those decisions, the harder it gets. But as long as you're getting some benefit from it in the meantime, as long as you're putting points on the board, you're going to establish yourself an advantage like Hamertron have done so far. So great pull from Finn Collins, a nice roller, overshoots Miller Mercer. That's the second time that he's let a pole roll right past him towards the back of the end zone, which means I don't believe he touched it. So is he going to be able to bring that to the front of the end zone, which is perhaps a lot less dangerous than some of the previous situations we've seen Laminati in this game.
Looks like he's learned from his previous mistakes, and he's walking it up to the front of the end zone. Nonetheless, a really formidable cup. He launches it deep. That's a laser.
Huge attempt.
Trying to reel it in there. That was impressive from Hutchison as he takes to the skies.
Yeah, Stevenson really trying to establish a new logo for New Zealand Ultimate all by himself. Finn Collins with a safe reset to who else but Michael Downey. Quickly working back with Finn Collins. Smith available as a reset option. We've got Ball and Kapoor cutting back through, trying to provide the support. Michael Downey pointing, signaling, showing where the space is. Simone Ball has the disc, and we know that she's got a cannon. Miller Mercer managed to get a touch on it, but the question is whether or not he touched disc or hand to secure that block.
Looks like she's mentioning, we'll put it up there, she's mentioning that he got into her space, made contact. And, you know, honestly, if there's not contact, there's a host of other fouls that could be applicable. There's straddling, where the line between your 2 feet goes between the person, or wrapping if your arms are around them. If the line between your 2 hands goes between the person or through the person. So there's a lot of ways, or disc space. If you need to be a disc's length apart between the person you're marking, you're not allowed to be too close to them. So there's a whole range of marking infractions that could also be applicable here, which they're discussing on the field to figure out exactly. What do you guys think at home? Did it look like a foul?
So now that's an interesting point. I think it comes back to what you were saying about the wrapping. So it's important to recognize Simone Ball's pivot foot is going to be her left as a right-handed player. Now, was there a line between Miller Mercer's feet that came within a disc's width of her pivot point? Because if that's the case, then it is technically wrapping, although it seems like a weird call to make after the throw is gone. It's typically the kind of call that you would make when you're feeling too cramped because of that lack of space. So Hamertron are going to retain possession here. It's Finn Collins managing to get a slip from Mercer.
Somebody buy him ankle insurance. He's going everywhere. Downey with the disc.
Again, it's one of those things with Finn Collins, because he's so lean and so long, he's able to get a huge amount of length out of those lunges that he has and capitalize on them with the length of the arms. But he doesn't, there's not a huge amount of load, so there's not a lot of deceleration that he has to compensate for, which allows him to be so springy. It's really fantastic, me being able to put my personal training certification to work as Lehigh Kapoor chases it down,
and Laminati
doesn't get the read.
Doing a really great job there, as I was going to say, doing a really great job of forcing the disc downfield, downwind, to the far side of the screen that you were looking at. Now, they did have a mark cut, taking away the swing options, and it was really, really effective defense from Laminati, especially against Hammertron. We've been discussing at length the skills and abilities of the handlers, the depth and experience, the ability of that we've seen thus far for them to use the width of the field, swinging to the upwind side, and that was really exemplary points, I think, or possession, defensive play, where Laminati was taking away, forcing them downwind, but also taking away those swing options, which led to this possession right now, back to Laminati being back on offense. Really great defense there.
There's Miles Hutchison on a great aggressive cut through that Hammertron defensive zone. Reading's going to put one up, manages to get to the hands of Huang, but that pressure from Finn Collins, it wouldn't be a live stream without that kind of mistake. Finn Collins managing to shut that one down. Melody Young to Smith to Ball.
And now Hamertron, as I mentioned before, back at the swinging. So it looks like Lamanati's really taken the foot off the brakes a little bit and slowing them down and forcing to the downwind side. Downing nonetheless struggling to find options, throwing the fakes. The stall must be getting high. He finds Ball, downwinds.
And again, and really that's what it comes down to, is it's having the versatility to try and use that downfield space to really threaten it with those big fakes. And when the defense is too much, look for a safe option. Manages to chip through to Ball. She's so sneaky. She's always on the wrong side of where you want her to be.
And I don't quite understand what's changed with this defense now. It appears that they're forcing sideline, which allows for longer throws. That said, Hammertron hasn't been putting them up. But they appear to be forcing sideline, whereas previously it was just trapping on the downwind side. Something that I think if they initiate again could be really effective for them.
Downey working with Kapoor. Now, again, we're seeing the Hammertron offense really start to slow it down, which is quite interesting. So much the same as we've talked about the dancing or the sort of partially clearing cuts, whereas what we're seeing now is no clearing at all, in a great play by Readings to try and get the grab, but it's going to be Kilgore with the point. A great assist by Melody Young.
Incredible tenacity on that defensive play right there. But also, yeah, props to sticking with it. When the catch is bobbled, oftentimes it can be, in your mind, just that pressure, where if you were completely free, you could make that catch. But as soon as there's a defensive player in the space, props to just stick with it and reel it in. Great point.
Even when she's taken the day off work, Melody Young's still going to teach you how it's done as she takes Hammertron into halftime with a great assist to Kilgore, who manages to get it despite a great bid from Readings for Laminati. The score is currently 8-4 inside of the side from Kirikiriroa. And we will be back soon and shortly. We will be back soon and shortly for the thrilling conclusion of the third game in our stream coverage for the 2023 Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships. As always, my name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Kelsey Bielik.
And thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon. And we are back for the second half of the third game of our stream coverage in the 2023 Division 1 New Zealand Mixed Ultimate Championships. Laminati on screen at the moment, currently down by 4 against Hammertron Prime to come out on defense. This is what Hammertron need. They basically need a free possession of the disc to start off the half so that they can close it away and really fire things up. Laminati want to pour down the pressure on defense to generate a turn and keep themselves in this game. My name is Blair Monroe.
I'm Kelsey Bielek.
We are pleased and privileged to be your eyes and ears on the ground to provide context and commentary for what is, without a doubt, the greatest sport in the world. Argue about it in the comments. We're going to see Laminati come down on defense, just waiting for the signal for readiness and the response from Hammertron. We've seen some amazing plays so far from both of these teams. A lot of zone defense to try and utilize the strong wind, which admittedly not super consistent. Sometimes it's dying down.
So we've got Hammertron coming out on offense, no doubt taking their time to discuss what they want to run. Maybe they're assuming they'll be coming down into zone defense. But I also wanted to comment on the fact that the score right now, it's 8-4. However, when you start the second half, I think a key thing that Laminati would have been talking about during halftime is that in the second half, the game is 0-0. The half is 0-0, and you come out as if it's a fresh page. It's in your hands. You have the ability to make that change, and we know that this is a strong team. As Blair was saying previously, these are two the friendliest of rivals. They've played each other quite a bit in the past, and we've seen different outcomes. So I think it's one thing that Laminati should be keeping in mind during this half is that they're in control and in charge of what happens, and they have the ability to fully bite back and make their way back if they can. Coming down into zone, which may have been something that Hammertron was discussing on the end zone line, and something that they need to keep going, to keep continuing, as I mentioned, hammer to the anvil, keep the fire hot and keep the energy up to knowing that their opponents could make their way back bit by bit.
Kelly Carter finally managing to put the long shot up to break through the zone, finding Jourdain to quick bounce off quickly. Back to Jourdain and back to Carter and Wilson. We saw the hammer get wound up there, but he decides not to commit. Doherty taking yards with Murehu Cookson, a big fake up that near sideline, trying to shift those three players. Holder, Ing, and La Parada in the front of that zone, trying to force Hamertron to use the sideline, just trying to use as many passes as they need to generate that turnover. But it's Carter and Wilson.
And Hammertron doing a really great job right now of spreading the field, to finding the open options. But I think a really big shout out, an upwind huck.
And it's going to be eaten up by Quixley.
Oh my gosh, I think that was a point!
That looks like it may have been a point. Jacob Woodward.
How silly.
Hands on hips.
You know what?
A moment of solitude and heartbreak for number 9 for Laminati. He got up. He managed to tip the disc. He got this huge spike, but just enough wobble to bring it back in bounds.
I love the hugs there from both teams, as he didn't catch that. It's one thing that I said before. There was an attempt at Callahan, a layout D, and this was in the last game with O'Hara from HMC. A layout D, and it was a turnover in the end zone. And it could have been a Callahan. We like to say catch your Ds. And this is the exact same situation. The importance of getting your head hand around it, and if you don't do that, then seeing it down to the ground, hitting it aggressively so that it's out of play and the disc is dead. Just a prime example, but also an incredible example of being hungry for the disc and never giving up.
That's what they say, like the third thing they tell you in your first outdoor game of Ultimate is that a disc is catchable until it has hit the ground. And that is, as you say, and I hate to say it, a prime example of what can happen if you do not catch your Ds.
Future coaches, remember this point. It's 52 minutes and around 48 seconds in the game. One to go back to, a prime example to show the beginners or the seasoned players, just as a friendly reminder.
And we're going to have Simone Ball to initiate, supported by Collins, Kilgore, Smith, White, Furness, and McCoy. Puts a nice roll up.
A roller, and I think she was aiming there. It ended up coming back to the middle of the field, but probably aiming so that it rolled down to the low side. It doesn't stop a launch downfield from Huang, who can't find the receiver.
And so we're going to see Wood, Smith topping Howe, Huang, Reddings on defense and low.
Smith was looking for that point, but also as a friendly reminder, when you're throwing downwind, it can feel so much more powerful. You have the wind at your back. That's like an extra little push. It's a little bit of energy. But at the same time, it means the disc drops. There's nothing holding it up and making it float. So just like Coral Huang was trying to launch it downfield there and throw it as far as she could, it just dropped, which makes it a little bit more difficult as a receiver.
Big fakes by Hamish Furness, hoping to open things up, manages to find White center field. Collins coming back after that aggressive deep cut, but some miscommunication is going to give the disc straight back to the Laminati.
And it's been a windy day, as we've been saying, but as a heads up is getting, I feel a little more gusty there, impacting that turnover.
Howe with the disc to Reddings.
Some tight, now it's opened up a little bit, just tight defense around the disc. Both teams are really putting so much pressure around the thrower, and which results in those quick movements. Oh, what a point!
Great grab there by Lowe, managing to put one on the board for the half for Laminati, bringing it back to a 4-point game. Huge work, great patience up that far sideline.
And Collins reaching to get there, and despite the wingspan of a pterodactyl, can't make it, can't quite get the disc as it sneaks under his arm. Let's see that one more time. The pressure around the disc, pressure on the throwers, as it turns into a point. And exciting to see that that Laminati, they're on the scoreboard. You know, as I mentioned, the important thing out of half, when it's halftime, even if you're up, important to remember you need to respect the other team. After half, it's anyone's game. It's time to reset as a team, have a bit of a break, rest your muscles, have some water, but also mentally just check in and focus on yourselves. What you can control, controlling the controllables. You can't control the wind, you can't control the weather, you can't control the other team, but you can control how well you play, and just focusing on the fundamentals that you've drilled, what you're capable of, and if you're not capable of it, then choosing the right decisions and making the easy options, and working as a team. So really great to see that Laminati has focused on those fundamentals. They're converting to another point. We've got Wood with the throw, trying to aim for the same thing that we saw from Ball last point.
Only this time it's gonna work. Really pushing the distance towards that far sideline.
And Laminati in a zone right now, really flooding players around the disc. We see a relatively meager downfield and a lot of pressure just around the disc.
Now, if there's one player that you want to try and trap on a sideline, it's going to be Kelly Carter, giving her any room just like that. Hutchison manages to peel off and shut that one down, which is exactly what Laminati needed.
You know, I got a little bit nervous when he didn't fully catch it, though.
Yeah.
Based on what we saw before, I'm thinking anything is possible, especially with Hammertron chasing down discs.
Yeah, I mean, if it's good enough for Crowded House, it's good enough for us, but Hutchison's going to put one deep. It's fading. Woodward's underneath. Manages to, tries to duck around Innes.
Looks like there were too many players in the stack in the way for him to fully be able to make a play on the disc.
Yeah, that's the Crowded House I was talking about as Carter drops one back to Wilcock. losing yards to get better position as Doherty working around Wood and Stevenson in the zone head. Just kept in bounds by Houvelan in her own pair of toques, but it looks like Woodward's going to make a call. I didn't want to say anything when I saw it, so just a little bit of a reminder, although it looks like they may have retracted and it's going to be considered inbounds, the lines, the boundary lines of the playing field are considered not part of the playing area. So if a contact point is made with the lines as the first point of contact, Caitlin Wood manages to shut that one down.
She's such a tenacious defender. She's such an incredible player. I think her biggest asset is that she's incredibly, in the best way, she's so sneaky. She finds where to get open, she knows where the D is going to be, and she's just shuts things down at the critical point when they need to be shut down.
With a huge grab off the shot from Stevenson.
Speaking of shutting it down.
Now, Kelsey, I tend to agree with you about pretty much everything, but I have to say Caitlin Wood's biggest asset is her heart and her personality. At last year's Division 1 Mixed Ultimate Championships, after 2 days of talking, I was certainly on Struggle Street, and she had pulled some lozenges out of her bag just to try and help things along. But again, it's that heart that makes her such a fantastic ultimate player. And that grab, that intercept was so clean. And then Weindorp manages to go for the around, finds Max Stevenson.
Let's talk about that release.
Oh my God, Father.
He stepped backwards to get around that mark. It baffles me, those few players, those unicorns that are capable of stepping backwards but launching their momentum and the disc forward. I still need to
there's a really weird sort of biomechanical thing happening there where that front leg oversteps the rear pivot point, but there's so much hip rotation and thoracic rotation as well. They just generate so much whip
power,
and that's what happens when you do it. You end up overthrowing Jacob Woodward, of all people, who has to lay out for it. With his foot speed, that's definitely saying a lot.
A great point in all regards, and also 2 more points on the board for Laminati. Let's see, they're getting hot. Let's see if this turns to fire, because I mean, at this point, Hammertron needs to step up. I hope they're not getting tired. It seems like maybe there's a bit of a lull, because this is exactly what I was hoping to see with Laminati, that they're stepping up. Look at them streaking downfield and setting their zone right away.
A great pull from Ryan Smith, stretching deep into the Hammertron defensive zone. Puts them in Callahan country for the first couple of passes. They are able to work through. Carter has to go long, and it's territorial for Wilson. Over the top of Holder, shooting for Doherty deep. Stevenson in hot pursuit, but Doherty's going to come down with it. There we go, Kelsey. Looks like Hamertron aren't tired after all.
Oh, that's it. That's the energy, the boost they needed. And what a way to score a point, too. Is there wind right now? I mean, we don't have 5 people holding down the tent at the moment. You guys can't see that. We can see this on the field, though, which makes it look like it's the most beautiful, calm day. Hawk after Hawk, they just split the field into 2. It's quite simply split it into 2 to score the point. Incredible poise, incredible vision from the handlers to pull that in.
And again, just getting to see that one more time. So we're going to see Wilson pull that one down, put the huck up for Doherty. Now, Stevenson actually had a really good position on that one, body-wise, relative to where Doherty was. As the disc started to fade towards Doherty, he had to slow down to stay underneath it, and Stevenson was able to get into a great position to play. Just got edged out on the grab there, which it's a heartbreaking play on defense, but huge props to him for making that play regardless, for getting in position, for closing that gap. Hamertron having broken double digits for the first time in the game, up by 4 in a race to 15.
So quite a bit of conversation now, making it challenging also for Laminati to be scoring on offense for this upwind point. Interesting to consider. If I were on defense, I'd be considering a hard zone with a lot of pressure around the thrower, which is what we've been seeing as well. 4 players potentially around in the chase and the cup or making a wall. There's an infraction, it looks like, on the pull.
Violation.
Maybe offsides, or the team didn't indicate that they were ready.
Yeah, it looks like the gender match majority is still valid, though, which is always a good sign to see that players are communicating that to themselves. Just a reminder for those watching, as a result of recent World Flying Disc Federation rules, we have a rotating system. So in the bad old days, as I'll call them, because any day where women are not treated with equal opportunity as men is not a good old day. How things used to be done was there was a flip for an end that would determine the gender majority, and that typically led to male players getting a lot more and disproportionately more playtime. Now we have a rotating system, an ABBA system, where every 2 points the gender matching majority changes. What a fantastic pull there.
I feel like at this point they need to be watching. It's interesting. So if you land the disc in the end zone, normally we see players walking the disc up on offense. If they pick it up, they walk it up to this line, which is happening right now. And that's because it rolled out of bounds. However, if the disc lands in the end zone off the pole, you need to pick it up exactly where it landed. Now at this point, they need to stop it rolling out the back. At this point, it's a big huck. It's cleaned up by Hammertron downfield.
Collins just doing what Collins does.
Strong mark, though, immediately forcing a deep look. There's multiple white players deep, and they almost did themselves, unfortunately. It looks like too many hands up in the air.
Great attempt by Kilgore, but Kapoor got involved as well. Ratings was definitely at the bottom of that pile, I'm afraid, but it is going to be enough, his presence, to give the disc back to Laminati. It's Mercer. Howe sending it big, looking for Hutchison.
It's a big game we're seeing.
Collins finally not tall enough to get that one. Puts one up for
Easy.
Chloe Topping. What a fantastic performance. After carrying that offense, she's going to need some back surgery, but it's not a discectomy. It is a get the disc to me. And who better than a medical professional to put that kind of surgery on display for us, having recently finished medical school. What a fantastic show. Get you a girl who can do both.
Big congrats on that. That's a major accomplishment. I would have to say an even bigger one was that the beauty of that point, though. We're seeing a lot of hucks on display from both teams, and I, for one, am really enjoying it. It's turning into a big game of Ultimate, and exciting to say the least.
Great finish to that point. Fantastic, as Llamanati are back within 3.
They still definitely have a fighting chance. They're still, staying involved and engaged and really challenging every point that's going up. I've been really impressed with the Laminati defense, especially on the handlers, slowing things down or completely shutting them down sometimes. A really impressive zone, really forcing Hammertron handlers to use the width of the field or stopping them from doing that altogether. And then the beautiful connections we've seen from all genders across the team, and the connections that they're making. They've been playing so well.
And now it's Morehu, Cookson, Wilcock, and Hogan in the handler set to respond. As we once again, Woodward, Holder, Stevenson aggressive in that zone defense, forcing Hammertron towards the far sideline as Woodward closes the trap. Goes back, swings forward straight to Morehu Cookson, taking steps through the zone. Great bite by Weindorf, but Kelly Carter, those gloved hands are just too secure. Easy reset back around to Wilcock. There's not enough developing in the downfield space for him to move the disc forward, so he loses yards, giving the disc to Hogan.
And a lot of pressure right now, finding the space through.
Briar Bertram.
Attacking it, but he can't get there. Yeah, Bertram's just too fast, too furious.
At 3 fast, 4 furious. Briar Bertram having, who's doing just a fantastic job in terms of New Zealand lacrosse as well. Just a general all-around field sports athlete. But Hogan's putting it up for Doherty, who jumps too early.
A collision.
But it's gonna be Briar Bertram out of nowhere.
One thing I wanted to shout out, it was an incredible point, but one thing that I wanted to shout out was Ing had position there, and he initially defended that, but also just maintained his positioning. It could have been a bit messy, and there was quite a bit of contact, but big shout out to the safety of that defensive play. First of all, the intelligent positioning. Let's see that one more time. The intelligent positioning where he was. So we'll see
There's the big
the
shot.
firing shot as it comes up. As he goes up, pulls out, and then just maintains his positioning. He doesn't go up again. He just watches out for the safety on the field.
And again, that's such. Not only is it considerate, but it's incredibly. It's just respectful to recognize, hey, things are a little bit dicey at the moment. I'm going to just hold my position, regardless of what impact it may have for the score, because the safety of my opposition or my teammates is paramount. And as we see Briar Bertram come in with the knee slide, seeing that feels like listening to Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who, that bit where Roger Daltrey comes in with the, yeah, like that. If you could create a visual analog, it would be the sight of Briar Bertram knee sliding from across the field into a score to put Hamertron back up by 4 points.
Was it The Who or was it Blair Monroe as the audio? Regardless, we're on the field with Simone Ball launching the disc, going for one of her classic roller pulls, and see how many more yards she's gaining from that. A lot of people are going for as much height as they can, and Ball capitalizing on the roll on the ground.
Smith managing to snag the overthrow to Wood. Michael Downey static in the middle of that zone. He's calling for the disc, making himself available as bait to try and keep the defense out of position, but he's an option there. Caitlin Wood taking a bite. Hutchison aggressive on the disc now.
And yeah, Laminati doing what they're doing best. Just shutting things down, slowing them down. Hammertron, which showed such great quick movements in the beginning, really starting to slow it down, and Paul just trips up on her heels a little bit there.
Yeah, just having to backstep a little bit to get a good position on catching the disc. I think she may have stumbled on her cleats, but Smith has it now for Laminati, hoping to bring her back to a 3-point game, threading through to Hutchison, far sideline. The zone defense immediately back in position, really trying to force just an error from the Laminati side. Huang has it marked by McCoy. Goes up and
What
around. Great. Such good weighting on that throw.
Yeah.
Like just the way that it came up and dropped back down. It's like she had the arc in her head when she released it.
And now Laminati showing what we've seen exactly from Hammertron. Firing a few more shots. Unfortunately, Wood can't reel that in. Yeah, I feel like a bit more willing to take those shots. We've seen Hammertron keeping it back, keeping it in the handler space within those safe throws.
Michael Downey puts up a massive shot straight into the waiting hands of Love Parada to shut that one down. I heard that hand block all the way from here.
Huang using the shoulder fakes. What a D! Can't get the hand on it though, can't reel it in.
Smith putting it through, working with Huang. Straight through to Hutchison. Kapoor is quick to establish the mark. Hutchison shifting around, finds Smith as they push towards the far sideline. A little bit of wobble on that disc as the wind picks it up, but Hutchison manages to keep it secure. McCoy looking for the next threat, but the disc goes back towards Hutchison on that far sideline. Oh, the disc getting pushed down by the wind as Huang makes a great undercut, trying to provide that reset option. It's Downey and Kapoor. Smith pushing deep into that space, calling for the disc, has to go across to Ball, back to Downey.
Interestingly, in Ultimate, you may see players releasing the disc before they fully stop. There's obviously the travel call, which we're familiar with from other sports, netball, basketball. And in Ultimate, you are allowed to throw as long as you're slowing down and not changing direction. What a throw from Simone Ball.
Huge grab by Finn Collins.
Pop over the top, and as we've discussed, when you're throwing downwind, oftentimes the Frisbee has a tendency to just drop. So when you're adding height to it, like a big high release backhand like Ball puts up there, it gives so much more time for the disc to drop to make an easy catch, an incredible D, or was it thrown straight to him?
I think...
I mean, a beautiful target.
We'll let history decide. It's an interesting thing. We talk a lot about success in New Zealand being shut down by tall poppy syndrome. The only tall poppy syndrome I endorse is when you throw a pop pass to a tall player in the end zone, just like Simone Ball did for the score with Finn Collins. Hammertron now up by 5. But just like such good awareness and response and reaction from this Laminati side. They really are. it's a cliche and it's an awful one. The scoreline is not reflective of the intensity and the intention and the effort that they're putting in.
It's such a good thing to recognize.
But
also,
cliches are cliches for a reason. That's what they're doing. They're leaving it behind. We had that great spike block in front of Downey's Huck by Love Parada. Great plays there. Caitlin Wood. Just great positioning on offense on the turn as well and really quick to react. So it's really, really good to see.
one thing I'd like to see Laminati clean up a little bit is Hammertron's been coming out hard on defense, but I feel like Laminati they're the biggest barrier right now. It's not Hamertron, no knock on Hammertron's defense or intensity as the other team, but I feel like Laminati has the ability to step out of their minds, that they're the ones forcing their own turnovers, and they have the ability to overcome that, which is honestly the best place to be as a team.
The quick reset, Miller Mercer looking deep. Lowe's chasing it, not going to be enough. It was Stevenson and Finn Collins locked in. I don't want to call it a lover's embrace, but it was certainly very close, very intimate.
And again, so when you're doing less well as a team, when you're not achieving to the levels that you're capable of, and it's because you're just not there, it's the best problem to fix if the other team's just shutting you down. You can't stop the other team from doing that. You can't make them worse, but you can pick yourself up and improve that. And so that's something that I've been kind of wanting the whole game, just a little bit hoping that Laminati steps past that, because we've seen these brilliant flashes of athleticism, connection, flow, and I just want to see them maintain that a little bit more. The turnovers have been silly bobbles. They've been miscommunications or hucks that aren't quite going to the right place.
Exactly. We're going to see whether or not they can do as Jim Morrison prompted. They've tried to run, they've tried to hide. Will we see them break on through to the other side as Furness lays out to keep that one in hands for Hamertron? You said, Kelsey, and I could not agree more. There's winning a game, there's losing a game, and then there's, well, I mean, to clarify, I don't think your opponent has to win a game in order for you to lose a game. And at the moment, as you say, Laminati's, Hamertron are not winning the game. Laminatis are losing the game. And so the question is, can they do something about that? Can they dig deep? Can they push through? Great touch by Stevenson there. Looks like we're going to make a call. No call. So possession to go back to Hamertron. But as you were saying, Laminati, they're not playing to their level. I think when you've got teams that are mismatched, the team that is more dominant often plays down to the level of the opposition. The thing that a lower set team or a less prepared or a lower skill level team, they always want to play up. I think the danger at the moment, and this is what we might be seeing from Laminati, they're not playing to their level. They're playing to the level that Hamertron think they have. And I think it would be interesting if they were able to take a timeout or just get something to reset themselves and start playing at a level we've seen them at, the level that saw them take a victory over Hamertron in their qualifying tournament.
You know, it's also early days. It's the first day of the tournament. What a great catch.
Hamish Furness, he's cut it out, man.
But for early days, it's early days in the tournament, it's the first day. Settling into it, settling into the conditions. And, it's a privilege to be watching so well-matched teams. A sneaky hand there from Mercer.
Such a good touch by Miller Mercer.
And a high release. That was a push pass.
Was that? I mean,
that was a push pass.
I want to see that again.
I've been, it's just such creativity with the throws. Should it have been a lefty backhand? Why do it if there's a lefty backhand if it's just such a beautiful push pass?
What a great touch.
He's got the bookends there.
Do you think he'll sign a disc for me?
Yeah, worth trying.
That was a push pass. Borderline chicken wing. Just a ridiculous throw and great touch there. One thing I was going to say before that turnover was generated, it did look like Hamertron were kind of abandoning the handlers in that upfield space. Almost stranding them, leaving them without a lot of downfield support. We've talked a lot today about how important it is in that downfield, particularly against a zone, how important those cuts are to test the defense, to poke holes, to prod and prompt and inspect, really trying to see where the weaknesses in the armor are. And as soon as those cuts disappear, and it allows that defensive pressure to close in, and close in, and all of a sudden it gets too much, you try and force a throw, and you've got a quick player like Miller Mercer. He's going to get a touch and get a turn.
He's quick, but also for all of the Hogwarts alums who are tuned in, I mean, he's obviously a student of Professor Trelawney. When you've studied divinations at the highest levels, and you can tell where the defense is and where that throw is going to be, we saw him just sneak around. He had eyes in the back of his head. He just knew. He studied it and got that D and then capped it off, put the cherry on top with the cheeky push pass. We've got Hammertron coming down on offense with the wind at their backs.
Quixley pushing deep, but Hutchison's there waiting. Wilcock and Carter, two big cannons for the Hammertron offense. Faking off Martingy Hogan because Brianna Murgatroyd too close in pursuit and jumping to shut down the lane. Stewart aggressive on the mark. We're losing yards in a straight line. It's not a great position for Hammertron to be in. She's going to rip the big shot, looking for Quixley. Hutchison's got the Touchison.
No doubt. One thing I love there that we saw Carter, this is just a play style thing more than anything. She's such a confident player, and when things are taken away from her, when defense is taking it away, the cheeky smile she has where she sees it, identifies it, and then finds the other option. In this situation, a beautiful huck downfield. But Hutchison with the Touchison making the D gives Llamanati another chance on offense.
Great grab by Quixley over Ing. It's all right, it's the curse of the commentator, Kelsey. It happens to the best of us. Hogan on a great cut, getting separation from Holder. Pops one over for Quixley. That's going to be a bookends for number 15, Alex Quixley. What a great work there. He managed to snag that intercept and then cap it off with a great score. Hamertron now 13, I believe, over the Laminati 8.
And high fives on the field. Is it too late for Laminati? I certainly hope not. And I certainly hope to see more games of theirs. But Hammertron quickly closing it out. You know, running out of time. Laminati here running out of time to scrape back. They've got a long road ahead of them for that. I really love the vision on that point, though. And Hammertron consistently pulling these things out. That open side throw, which I feel like is so often overlooked. The open side of the field, of course, the most dangerous if you're a downfield defense. That's what you should be covering. But people get so caught up in the break side or where the disc was just coming from, where the play is hot, that it can be difficult to remember. It can be easy to lose sight of the open side of the field and such a vision on that throw. To find the open player, put the biscuit in the basket.
And so with 10 minutes left on the clock before we hit our soft cap, Hamertron 2 points away from an impressive victory. Laminati still an opportunity to come back as Samoan Ball puts down a great roll pull, stretching just beyond the defensive half. It's Miller Mercer looking for an option early, finds Huang as the zone sets. Coral Huang's got it. No, it's Finn Collins.
You can't teach height as does he even take the disguises?
It's not
even the bottom rung, I think.
Like it's not just the height. It's not just the like anime stepping off the air trick that he's doing. He's doing a great job of getting the position too.
I also wanted to comment on that offensive strategy there. It was awesome to see Llamanati streaking downfield and immediately made that look. Hawks are the name of the second half.
Is it gonna be Lehigh Kapoor?
Oh.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Ground strip, and so Mercer to Weindorp, but the disc is bobbling back. Once again, the sword of Ultimate hangs over the hands of both players. Somehow, Miller Mercer laid out for the fake, and then from the ground, I think, got a touch on that one from Downey.
As I said, as a student of Professor Trelawney, one of the finest in divination, he's well trained in the arts of foresights.
Great shot there to Woodward, just trying to tow it in, manages to tumble it. It's Downey with a nice give and go to Ball before the defense tries to clamp him down. Huang out of position.
Trying to lock in another upwind possession here. Too easy.
McCoy again, her third point of the game. I think it might be at least 2 of those have been assists from Michael Downey.
We've got a hot connection here.
Hammertron 1 point away from victory, but they have to generate a turn if they want to walk away with the win. Laminati demand perfection if they want to have a win. It's a high-pressure situation, folks. The score is 14-8 in favor of the side from Hamilton. But as Hammertron Prime know all too well, after a devastating comeback from AUUC Flood, I think they had a 12-point lead and threw it away to lose on Universe Point.
Oofta.
And so, with the big oof, Hammertron Prime, they know all too well the sting of letting off the gas. And so we'll see what they do on what they hope to be the last point, as Laminati are going to swing back to the right-hand side of your screen with some aggressive aggressive offense now.
On the left side of the screen. Meanwhile, we have Hammertron on the right side. Of course, in white, ball with the disc. Will she be looking for another classic roller pull?
There's the pull.
For a high release. We'll see if they're going to come down, as I would do in this situation, a zone, and the wind gusts just as the disc goes out. It's always tough for those of you who've played in windy conditions. When the disc is rolling, the wind can really definitely take it on a wee journey. So
Freedom Frisbee.
Freedom Frisbeeing, walking it down to bring it back, just checking if it's still all good after hitting the ground from that height. Yeah, so in this situation, it looks like, as expected, we see a zone with, two players back. Hammertron's got 2 players back. Just predicting the deep Hucks. Both teams have really been doing well off of the Hucks in the second half. It's been exciting. So they're respecting that by, as predicted, 2 deeps in that space.
Finn Collins again. I mean, we've seen that play tried by Laminati multiple times as Nikki White receives the reset on the far sideline. We've seen that reset handler sitting up immediately behind, maybe sort of 5 meters behind the person who's initiating the disc, so they can drop the disc straight away and then turn into an Huck instantly, as Furnace bouncing the disc, and White a little off balance. Tries to put it up, but it comes up high. The wind gets underneath it. It's going to give the disc back to Laminati. This is what they need.
So again, those pop passes, when they're easy to do, but as soon as you add wind into the equation, you need more touch on the disc, you need more power on it, making those little passes so much more difficult in windy situations. Can Laminati convert this into the point they desperately need?
Threading to Caitlin Wood, far sideline. Some big fakes tempting towards the midfield, but again, that drop and slam, in with a huge huck. It's Collins. No, it's not. It's Stevenson. We've said multiple times today the importance on defense of going early. Maybe not that early.
Okay, Stevenson.
That could have
pretty
been
close.
It was.
He had
it was.
some hang time.
Yeah, by the skin of his teeth, he just missed it. It was a great bid. But Stevenson, and that vision as well, to not give up. That's one of the hardest things, to see a player who has dominated that deep space go up for disc and think, he's got it. But just that, maybe he's mistimed it. I'm still aware, I'm still switched in, and Stevenson he was able to close that one out.
And I think you said it to a T. It's just that part where he's switched in, where despite the defensive pressure, despite bobbling that, he stays with the disc and knows that as long as it hasn't hit the ground, it's still alive and it still could be his. It's turning into a rather, as I've said, rather exciting game of Hucks. Some of them are a bit 50-50, but it's for the fans. As Laminati eke closer, again, it has to be a perfect game from now on, because they're up to the races, and one more point could be game for Hammertron.
And so who are Hamertron sending out on their offensive line to try and close this game out? Quixley, after that great bookend before, Briar Bertram, that fantastic knee slide that we've seen in the end zone, Wilson, who does a great job in the handle space, Jordan, who's been picking apart the Laminati defense in the midfield, Connor Doherty, Kelly Carter, and Kent Wilcox. So some really good handlers. Question is, are they going to try and patiently work the disc up?
And normally, in situations after the pull, when the disc is rolling, oftentimes you'll see players even laying out to stop the roll, just to stop where it's going. In this situation, Whitlock dodges it just because he's nervous that if he doesn't fully stop it, it could go out of bounds and he's stuck there. In this situation also, if he doesn't stop it and it does go out of bounds, he can walk it up to the very front of the zone. A smart decision, really, although it does add some time to walking the disc up.
And so we're going to have Carter initiating after that first pass from Wilcox, threading it through to Wilson. A great, nice low release in the wind, which is kind of the throw you want to make if you can, if you've got the skill for it. Wilson has it now.
An arrowhead formation of the zone. So they're trying to take away insides, both forehand and backhand, forcing the swings to the wide sides of the field. Interesting, because that's definitely Hammertron's strength. They don't seem to have much of an issue with swinging to the high side, and they're still finding gaps in between on the insides of this zone. So I think that they could tighten up that arrowhead formation a little bit. It's really wide.
Yeah, they're letting players like Wilson and Wilcox kind of take yards through the middle of that zone pretty comfortably, just like that. Curse of the commentator, Wilson pushing to Doherty and Wilcox. So we are seeing almost a four-player handler offense here, handler weave, bouncing the disc off Bertram where necessary, using those players in the downfield.
Which is exactly what's being forced. I guess it's just a bit confusing, because that's what Hammertron's been doing best.
Yeah, Doherty back to Wilson again. We've got Reddings, Howe, Stewart on the mark, putting those three male players up. Nice and aggressive. Josh Howe certainly improved a lot, not just in terms of his fitness, but the work that he's been putting in is clearly on display here. His fitness is phenomenal. His work on defense as well, and his communication on field is very, very impressive to watch. Is it going to be enough with Reddings and Stewart to really slow that down? Hamertron are slowly losing momentum, so their yardage gains are coming fewer and further between. It's Jordan getting involved to Carter.
I don't think Carter ever loses momentum, Blair.
Not Kelly Carter specifically, no.
Specifically, yeah.
Hamertron in general, you know.
Maybe in general, yeah. Great continuation. Really critical, I think, to look at is also the give and goes. It can be really beneficial, especially for people who are learning out to handle or throw and play in general, to follow your pass, to throw and go. And we're seeing that quite a bit. Whitlock is doing a really great job of throwing and then immediately looking for the next look. So as soon as you put it to take off, unfortunately not there.
And topping off that fantastic offensive performance with a great block is Chloe Topping. Unsurprising. But it was, as I was saying before, Kent Wilcox, he's doing some amazing movement off the disc as well as on. So not only is he's looking for that reset pass, as Howe sends one deep for Reddings and can't get away with it. Quickly dusting his shoulder off, just like Jay-Z told him to. Maybe there was enough contact on the disc to shut that one down. But just the way he moves off the disc. So he's looking, but he's also looking for where the play is going to go. Like that one episode of Futurama, Lure from the planet Omicron Persigae 8. Instead of shooting where I was, you should have started shooting where I was going to be.
Always.
But that's exactly what Wilcox is doing. He's looking for the next pass. Carter with a great grab. A grab.
I see her, and I'm wondering how she got that high up in the air. I guess there's no rules around jetpacks, or is that just her small muscles?
That's just hops. Going back to Wilson.
Great sustained pressure right now, although it looks like the cup is slowing down a little bit. At the same time, that pressure is adding to the handlers as well, to the other team. You know, the more times you're touching a disc, the more likely you are to drop it or make a mistake.
And this is what Llamas need. Now, a lot of their long options over the last few possessions, even though they've been downwind, great grab by Reddings there, threading through to topping. Can't manage to secure it.
And we see the call coming up. Just encouraging players, Quixley just encouraging players to settle down. He pushed his hands down there, encouraging the team, you know, we know how to stay chilly, we know how to stay calm, we know how to make the right decisions. Let's calm down and retain possession.
Throwing straight through the waiting hands of Wilson.
Fortunately not there.
Yeah, what we need from the Llamas is a shot a little high that's got the wind at its back if they're going to try and stretch the length, but instead Caitlin with a great leading pass to Weindorp. Reddings not able to get it. He definitely had the height. The timing was there. Just not quite sure why that one missed him. It's not like him. He's such a great and reliable receiver for any team.
It looked like it just went through the hands there. Yeah. Laminati really relying on those deep looks, though, to pull in the points, and definitely a viable option there. I think that was a good decision from Weindorp.
Bertram shaking free as Wilson puts an air bounce through. And again, that's one of those characteristic things. You could see Wilcock let his head drop before the disc had touched the ground. He'd already given up on it. And as this point is stretching on and it's 1 point away from victory, trying to stay dialed in, it gets harder and harder. But he manages to get it back. He wants to rip it, but Howe is in great position. Quixley has it, pops one through to Carter. Nice little spin cycle.
Moves.
And a travel has been called by Josh Howe on Kelly Carter,
And
so the disc is going to go back.
Again, the classic, I just enjoy this style when Carter plays the smiles. When things go wrong, she's got a smile on her face, and I think that's because she knows how to fix it. She's the task rabbit. She can solve any problem.
The task
like
rabbit.
the Energizer Bunny,
There
she
it
never
is.
stops.
Yeah, honestly, the moment they put her on one of those ads for batteries, sales are going to go through the roof. There's the big huck, looking for Quixley, over Wood to Wilson. Jourdain stretching it deep.
Everyone fighting to get in position there.
Wilcock has it, a little bit of a stumble. Surprisingly, there was no travel call on that one. Goes low, finds Doherty. Wilcock as an option for the reset. The zone slowly starting to close in. Doherty to Carter, pushing to the sideline. A little bit of a spin back. Doherty again driving up that far sideline to Carter. One more time to Wilson, right on the doorstep. Who's the option? Bertram's calling for it. You could see... you could see the call for the hammer. You could see Wilson wind it up, but he decides to go for a timeout. I think there's a question as to whether or not they can call a timeout after the cap has gone, which it did a few moments ago. If not, I believe it doesn't matter because I think they're going to let them have it.
They're going to let them have it.
And
you know, and at the end of the day, it is up to players on the field to make the call. And, you know, for example, if there's excessive pushing from both teams and both players are okay with it, while if Ultimate Frisbee is a non-contact sport, if the players deem it's okay, then it's okay. It's up to them on the field. There are the rules of the game that we need to follow. But in situations like this, you know, if the other team's okay with a timeout and both teams decide they need it, at the same time, a spirit timeout could also be a call if both teams decide they really need to have that break and potentially have a chat about things.
Absolutely. I think that's a great call there to make that timeout. Just to buy themselves a few seconds to A, catch their breath. You could see how quickly Kent Wilcock hit the ground after that one. He has been grinding and grinding this entire point, exemplifying the Hamertron machine, those gears whirling and working, leaving everything behind, just about gassed out. You can see how quickly he collapsed to the ground. This is an opportunity to rehydrate, get a mouthful of water, catch your breath, but also so close to the end zone, right on the doorstep. Wilson has the desk. He's a confident handler with an extensive youth career. They can call a play. They can set themselves up.
Exactly. I mean, it provides critical time. You can just stick with your basic end zone, which at this stage in the game, you need 1 point to win. Hammertron's there on the doorstep, you know, and they want to carry it home. So they could call their basic end zone. They could look at the players who are hot right now on the field, who are really feeling it, really hungry, who still have the legs and the energy, and are hungry for that point. They could be going for those classic connections, and provides a really great space to talk about that. We see the 3 players back up, really giving space. I'm expecting to see one pearl, one isolated cut coming from the front who will be looking to get open, and that's going to be the challenge for Llamanati to shut down. Now, meanwhile on defense, it also provides a really good time to discuss how you're going to set it up and how you're going to stop that. You, of course, don't know what's going to happen on offense, but there are still some things you can do. Switching the mark, for example, can completely change the strategy of what the other team is doing. Or even choosing how you're going to match up and who is on who. It provides space to really discuss that and think critically about the next play.
On top of that, because you're allowed to set up in response to the offense taking their structure, it allows you to close gaps that might have otherwise been there. Before the timeout was called, we had Briar Bertram in the end zone, hands high, calling for a hammer, calling for an over-the-head shot for her to close out the point. She was wide open. Now that the defense is positioned, she isn't anymore. She's looking to be tracked very tightly by Chloe Topping. The zone is closing around. It's Howe, Redding, Wood in position. Stewart to block the upline. Doherty trying to shimmy free. Wilson can't even get the drop shot through to Carter, but he can put a laser beam right through to Alex quickly for the score and the game. What a contest.
Wow. And they, as you were just saying, they put so much pressure around that disc. I think that was a really intelligent defensive move by Laminati. I love to see that, but it can be so difficult to mark space when you know, you're losing track of where all the different players are.
And just taking that opportunity to reset everything, set it back from scratch. Hamertron able to put it away. What a fantastic performance by both of these teams. Laminati managed to squeak out the win at the Tamaki Throwdown, but at net, when it counts, Hamertron walk away with the win. Fantastic display of a great athleticism, great decision-making, great teamwork by both of these sides. It'll be really, really good to see what else they're able to achieve throughout the rest of the tournament.
Especially throughout the rest of the tournament. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to watch both teams. Thank you also, such a pleasure to be commentating and watching along with you guys. We'll be here throughout the next 2 days, 2.5 days, as this first day is slowly winding up to an end. But until then, I'm Kelsey Bielik.
My name is Blair Monroe, and we will be back with you very soon.
ULTI.TV